The first time Adrian walked into my office, she was carrying a rolled-up set of drawings under one arm and a coffee in the other hand, and she didn't knock. My name is Miles Carver. I'm a structural engineer at a mid-sized firm in Calgary, the kind of place where everybody knows when the Tim Hortons order gets messed up, and the coffee machine in the break room has been broken since February. I'd been with the company 8 years by the time Adrian showed up. Long enough to know which clients to dread, which contractors to trust, and exactly how cold that corner office gets in January when the wind comes off the Bow River. She wasn't a new hire. She'd transferred from the Edmonton office after they restructured the Northern Division, and she came with a reputation for being thorough to the point of being annoying about it. My manager, Greg, warned me before she arrived. He said, "She's going to want to review everything you've already signed off on." I said that was fine. He gave me a look like he didn't believe me. She walked in on a Tuesday morning in late October, set her coffee on the edge of my desk without asking, unrolled the drawings right over the report I'd been writing, and said, "I'm Adrian. I'm taking over the Millrise project, and I have a question about your foundation specs." Not hello. Not nice to meet you. Just straight to the question. I looked at the drawings. Then I looked at her. She had her hair pulled back and she was already pointing at something on the page with a mechanical pencil, tapping it twice, like she expected me to already be following along. "The soil report flags moderate frost heave risk here," she said, circling a section near the east foundation wall. "But your rebar spacing doesn't account for differential movement. Did you base this on the 2020 soil study or the updated one from last spring?" I pulled my chair around to her side of the desk and looked at where she was pointing. She was right. Not completely right. The 2020 study had different bearing capacity values, and the specs were technically within tolerance, but she wasn't wrong to ask. "The 2020 study," I said. "The updated one came in after the drawings were 90% done. Client didn't want to pay for revisions." She straightened up and looked at me with an expression that wasn't quite judgment, but wasn't quite not judgment either. "So you knew it was potentially undersized and just moved forward?" "I knew it was within code," I said. "There's a difference." She held my gaze for a second. Then she picked up her coffee and said, "Okay, I'll flag it in my review notes as a risk item and we can talk about it with the client." She rolled up the drawings, tucked them back under her arm, and left. I sat there for a moment, looking at the space where she'd been standing. My report was wrinkled on one side from where she'd laid the drawings over it. I smoothed it out with my palm and went back to work, but I thought about that question for the rest of the day. She had the desk 2 offices down from mine. I know because I could hear her on calls. She had a habit of walking while she talked, and the sound of her footsteps would pace back and forth across the floor above the ventilation hum. I figured out her schedule without meaning to. In early, out late. Lunch at her desk most days. She brought food from home in a cloth bag, always a thermos, never the Tupperware containers that smell up the whole kitchen. About 3 weeks after she arrived, she came back to my office. Same no-knock entry, this time without the drawings. "Do you want to grab lunch?" she said. I looked up from my monitor. "Sorry, lunch. There's a Thai place 2 blocks over that's actually decent. I'm going in 10 minutes if you want to come." I said yes, mostly because I was caught off guard. We walked over in the cold, both of us with our hands in our pockets, and talked about the Millrise project the whole way there. We talked about it through the first half of lunch. Somewhere around the time the Pad CU arrived, she asked how long I'd been in Calgary, and the conversation shifted without me noticing exactly when. She'd grown up in Red Deer, studied at the U of A, had a golden retriever named Biscuit who lived with her ex, because the lease on her current place didn't allow dogs, and she drove out to see him on weekends. She told me that part casually, the way you tell someone something that still stings a little, but you've learned how to hold it lightly. I didn't ask about the ex. She didn't offer more. I told her I'd gone to school at Dalhousie, come back west because my mother was in Lethbridge, and I liked having the mountains close enough to see from the highway, even if I never actually made time to go up them anymore. She laughed at that. It was the first time I'd seen her laugh. It changed her face. We walked back to the office and she asked about a project I'd mentioned in passing, one I'd done 3 years before involving a pedestrian bridge over a small creek in the south end. I'd been proud of that one. She asked good questions, better questions than most people ask, including people who had been in the industry longer. After that, lunch happened again. Not every week, maybe once every 2 weeks. Sometimes she'd knock on my door at noon and say the Thai place, or the sandwich counter on Ninth, or once she mentioned a Korean place she'd found on a Saturday and wanted to try during the week. It was always casual, always easy to write off as colleagues grabbing food. But I started paying attention in ways I hadn't before. The way she pushed her glasses up with the back of her hand when she was reading something closely. The fact that she always remembered what I'd ordered last time and would say things like, "Wasn't that too spicy for you?" with this slight smile like she already knew the answer. The way she could disagree with me in a meeting in front of the whole team and somehow make it feel less like an argument and more like a conversation worth having. I noticed. I just didn't do anything about it. There are reasons for that. Some of them were practical. We worked together. Her desk was 2 doors down. Firm was small enough that anything that went sideways would follow us both around for years. I'd seen it happen to other people at other jobs and it never ended cleanly. Some of the reasons were less practical. I'd been in a long relationship that ended about 18 months before Adrian transferred in. It had been serious enough that I'd started looking at ring sizes, and then one afternoon realized I was doing it because I thought it was time rather than because I was sure. I stopped. Shiva figured out what I'd been doing. The conversation that followed was long and honest and adult and terrible. We split in February. I threw myself into work, and by the time Adrian walked through my office door, I thought I was doing fine, but I'd also stopped expecting things to work out the way you hope they will. So I kept it professional. I kept it friendly. I told myself that whatever I was noticing was probably just what it felt like to respect someone who was good at what they did. She never made it easy to believe that. In January, 3 months after she'd arrived, we were working late on the same project, the only 2 people left on the floor. The overhead lights had cycled down to the lower evening setting, and we were both at the long table in the boardroom, with drawings spread everywhere and takeout containers pushed to one end. Pho from the place that delivers until 10. She had her shoes off and was sitting sideways in her chair reading a report with her chin resting on her knee, and at some point she looked up and caught me not working. She didn't say anything for a second. Then she said, "What?" "Nothing," I said. "Just thinking." "About what?" "Foundation loads," I said. She went back to reading, but I saw the corner of her mouth go up. In February, she came back from a site visit to Edmonton for a week. The floor felt different without her on it. I noticed that too. When she got back, she brought coffee from a place she'd gone to near her old office and set one on my desk without saying anything. Just the cup and a sleeve around it so it wouldn't burn my hand. I started to say something. She was already out the door. In March, Greg put us both on a new project. A mixed-use residential building in the southeast end of the city, 6 floors, underground parkade, the kind of job that would run 12 to 14 months and required a lot of back and forth between structural and mechanical. Greg assigned us as co-leads. He did it matter-of-factly in a team meeting and moved straight to the next agenda item. Adrian didn't react. I stared at my notebook. We started meeting every Monday morning to align on the week ahead. Her office this time, because she had the bigger table. She made coffee on a small machine she kept on her credenza. Proper espresso, not drip, and she always made 2 without asking. Those Monday meetings were the best part of my work week. I didn't say that out loud, but I knew it was true. She was funny in small, dry ways that would catch me off guard. She was precise about things most people glossed over. She pushed back when she disagreed, and she said so plainly, and when she was wrong she admitted it in the same plain tone without making it into anything. Talking to her about work felt like talking to someone who actually wanted to solve the problem rather than just close the task. One Monday in April she was quiet, in a way that was different from her usual focused quiet. I asked if the site meeting had gone badly. She said it hadn't. She stirred her coffee for a moment and then said, "Have you ever had the feeling that you're in the right situation at the wrong time?" I didn't know what she meant specifically. I said, "What do you mean?" She shook her head a little. "Nothing. Just something I've been thinking about." "Forget it." I didn't forget it. In May I ran into her at the farmer's market on a Saturday morning. I was there for cheese and had not planned to talk to anyone. She was there with a canvas bag already half full of vegetables, and she almost walked into me at the corner of one of the stalls. We both stopped. She laughed, surprised. I said something stupid about cheese. She said she was looking for good tomatoes and was about to give up. We walked the market together for an hour. It didn't feel like running into a colleague. It felt like something else. The specific ease of being around someone where silence doesn't need to be filled, and directions can be decided by one person just starting to walk, and the other one following without discussion. Before we split off to go back to wherever we each were going, she said, "We should do this on purpose sometime." I said we should. I didn't follow up. I told myself I was going to. I meant to. But the week came back and got heavy, and the moment passed the way moments do when you let them. The following month was busy. The project hit a snag with the city's building permit department. They'd flagged a discrepancy in the parkade ventilation specs and wanted a full mechanical resubmission, which set us back 6 weeks and required a lot of urgent internal meetings. Adrian and I were in each other's orbits every day, sometimes twice a day, and the context was always work, and I was always grateful for that, because it meant I didn't have to figure out what else to say. One afternoon in late June, we were the last two out of a meeting that had gone sideways, and both of us were a bit flat from it. We ended up in the break room at the same time. I was filling a glass of water. She leaned against the counter and looked out the window at the alley below. "Does it bother you," she said, "when a project goes off track for reasons that have nothing to do with the engineering?" "Constantly," I said. "Right," she said, and then, "I feel like that about a lot of things lately." She wasn't looking at me when she said it, but she paused after in a way that felt like a question she hadn't exactly asked. I poured a second glass of water and set it on the counter near her. I don't know entirely why. It just felt like the thing to do. She looked at it and then looked at me, and for a moment neither of us said anything. Then Greg knocked on the doorframe with a file in his hand asking about the resubmission timeline, and whatever that was dissolved. She picked up the glass. "Thanks," she said, and went back to her office. I stayed in the break room for another minute, looking at the window. Summer passed. The project ground forward. We had lunch a few more times. She mentioned once offhand that she'd started hiking on weekends, trying to actually use the mountains I'd told her. In October I never went up. She didn't invite me. I didn't ask. I started going on a few hikes of my own. I told myself it was for the exercise. In September we hit another snag. This time a contractor dispute over material costs that required us both to be on a conference call with the client's legal team. It went 2 hours and left us both wrung out. Afterward, she stood up from the boardroom table and stretched her back and said, "I need a drink. Do you want to get a drink?" We went to a bar on 17th Street. It was a Wednesday evening. We stayed for 2 rounds and ordered fries we didn't need, and the conversation was easy in a way that was starting to feel familiar. The specific warmth of being around someone you've figured out, even though you haven't said that out loud. She talked about her sister in Vancouver and a trip she was planning to see her around Thanksgiving. I talked about my mother in Lethbridge and the fact that I still hadn't fixed the leaking tap in my bathroom, even though I had the parts and the knowledge, and zero excuse. She laughed and said, "You're very competent at a very large scale and completely useless at the small stuff." "Yes," I said, "that's accurate." She looked at me over her glass with that expression she had sometimes, like she was deciding something. Then she looked away. On the walk back to where we'd both parked, she asked, "Did you ever follow up on that farmer's market thing? Going on purpose?" "No," I said. "Why not?" I didn't have a good answer. "I don't know," I said, which was partially true. The more honest answer would have taken longer to say. She nodded, not like she was satisfied, but like she'd been expecting that and had already made her peace with it. We said goodnight in a parking lot off 17th, with the September air cold and the streetlights just starting to matter. Walking to my car, I felt like I had left something on the table in the bar, something important. But I kept walking. A few weeks after that, on a Thursday afternoon, I was putting together a takeout order from the Thai place, the original one, the one we'd gone to the first time, because I didn't feel like cooking, and it was easier than thinking about what to eat. I texted her without overthinking it, just, "Going to the Thai place. Getting takeout. Want me to grab you something?" She responded almost immediately, "Yes. The curry I always get, actually. I'll just come with you." We walked over in the cool October air almost exactly a year after the first time. Different jackets. The sun was already going down early the way it does in fall in Calgary. We ordered and waited at the little ledge near the window while they packed everything up, and the conversation wandered, easy and unhurried, and somewhere in the middle of it, I said, "My roommate's away this weekend. Going up to his family's place in Canmore." I didn't plan to say it, it just came out, and then I was aware that I'd said it and not entirely sure why. Adrian looked at the window. The city outside was going amber in the fading light. She was quieter for a beat. Then she said, "Is he?" "Yeah," I said. "Left this morning. Back Sunday." Another beat. She turned her head and looked at me with an expression I couldn't completely read. Then she said quietly, "Then I'll come over." The air changed. "Friday," I said. "Friday," she said. They called the order. She went to the counter to get it. I stood there for a moment staring at the menu board, which I had looked at 50 times and did not see at all. She came back with the bags and handed me mine, and we walked back to the office without saying much. But she was smiling when we went through the lobby doors, and so was I, and I think both of us knew it. On Friday evening she showed up at my front door with a bottle of Okanagan Red and a container of butter chicken she'd made earlier in the week that she said she'd been going to freeze, but brought instead because it was better than anything we'd order. "You made butter chicken," I said. "I make it every few weeks," she said. "It reheats fine. Are you going to let me in?" I let her in. We ate at my kitchen table. Not on the couch, not ordering in. At the actual table with actual plates, which I realized when I was setting it that I almost never used. She opened the wine. I got the glasses. We ate and talked, and the conversation was different from every work lunch and every project meeting and every bar on 17th. Not because the topics were different, just because the room was different, because there was no Greg down the hall, no phone waiting to buzz with a client question, no agenda to get back to. Just the table and the food and the wine, and this woman who had walked into my office a year ago without knocking and turned out to be the most interesting person in my building. At some point she said, "Can I ask you something?" "Sure," I said. She turned the stem of her wine glass slowly. "When I said that thing in the boardroom in April, about being in the right situation at the wrong time, I remember," I said. "You didn't ask what I meant." I was quiet for a moment. I wasn't sure I was supposed to. She looked at me. "Miles, you are sometimes the most structurally precise and emotionally obtuse person I have ever met." I laughed. It came out genuine. "That tracks," I said. "I meant us," she said. "The timing thing, that's what I meant." The kitchen was quiet. Outside, someone was walking a dog. I could hear the tags jingling. "I know," I said. "Do you?" she said. Not quite a question. "I think I've known for a while," I said. "I just kept deciding it wasn't the right time." She put her glass down. "What about now?" I looked at her across the table in my kitchen, with the butter chicken she'd brought from home still warm on the stove, the wine glass in her hand, the way she was watching me. A year of lunches and Monday mornings and meetings that ran long, and moments that I let pass every single time they came up. "I think now is fine," I said. She didn't smile right away. She just held my gaze for a moment like she wanted to make sure I was saying what I meant. Then the smile came, small and certain. "About time," she said.